I'm Gary, and this is Coasting with Culture, which is all about combining theme park visits and riding roller coasters with various cultural experiences around the world. Last time, Erica and I trekked a bit outside of Vienna to the south, making stops at the small ice cream producing amusement park of Eisgreisler and the slightly larger family park with its various rides, including their beaver-themed log flume. This time, we're exploring the capital city, stumbling upon a free performance by one of their highly regarded musical groups, and enjoying multiple attractions that highlight the city's history, famous citizens, world-renowned music, and one of its treasured desserts. Heading back into Vienna after visiting two parks to the south, we made our way back to Wiener Prater to catch a few rides we missed out on the day before, such as their Scenic Railway and SBF Visa Junior Coaster. The downside though is that both Hauschaubahn and Race appear to be closed again like they were the last time. But the trains were in different positions, which led us to believe they might run earlier in the day. And that was more or less confirmed when we saw an operator move one of the trains to an overnight parking spot. So we'd keep that in mind. As we drove closer to the park, we saw signage about an event called Prater Picnic, which was a special concert held on the grounds just outside the main midways, featuring the Vienna Symphony. And the best part? Attendance was free. This was such a cool discovery, as I had thought on multiple occasions how great it would be to experience the kind of music that Vienna is well known for, thanks to some of its legendary composers over the years. And we just happened to decide to come back to the park the evening that it was being held. The only real downside was that because of our late arrival, it made it tricky to find an unobstructed spot to watch, especially as some areas marked for seating had a walkway in between, and some folks would just stop and stay standing in front of everyone in that section. Luckily though, you could still listen and admire the beautiful music that was being played. I will always remember this as one of my favorite random moments on a trip, as I didn't think we'd have the chance to experience a symphony in a city known for them, yet here we were doing just that. After listening to a few compositions, we made our way back into the park for a ride on Wiener Reisenrad, a large Ferris wheel built in 1897 to mark the 50th anniversary of Franz Joseph I's ascension to the throne as Emperor of Austria. Your experience begins with a small museum in the entrance hall, featuring replicas of the original cars, and each one contains a look back at the growth and development of Vienna over the years. One of them even replicates the damage done from World War II, which led to a near-total destruction of the iconic attraction, but it was rebuilt after the war and has been a popular experience ever since. The cars are certainly an older style, and moving from one spot to another isn't quite as easy as more modern large Ferris wheels, since there's a large singular bench in the middle. But there was something really cool about seeing the larger, more complex superstructure that was engineered over a century ago. And like many of the more modern large Ferris wheels, it offers some excellent views, especially as we enjoyed watching the sunset over the Austrian capital. The timing of our ride also allowed us to truly admire the legendary amusement park and its brilliant lights that were shining bright into the darkening sky. I also enjoyed getting a chance to view several of the coasters we rode before from a new angle. As we completed our ride, we took a stroll around the park to look for a bite, as it had been a while since lunchtime, and chose a stand specializing in sausages. As a fan of bratwurst, it was an easy choice for me, and the small baguette it was served in was quite fresh. Certainly better than the stale old hot dog buns you might find at a gas station back home. It was a nice way to cap off the evening, before we'd get a full day of culture in the morning. So Erica's still asleep, as I felt like she deserved a little bit of rest after having gotten up from the early mornings that I put together. Once she gets up, we'll catch back up together, and for now, it's time to go explore Vienna. To kick off this Culture Day, I went to the city's Museums Quarter, which is home of the Natural History and Art History Museums, which sit across from each other on opposite sides of Maria Theresienplatz, a plaza dedicated to the Empress Maria Theresa. Just across the Ringstrasse from this plaza is the historic Hofburg, the former imperial palace of the Habsburg Dynasty. Built in the 13th century by Ottokar II of Bohemia, it would see several expansions, and as of 1946, serves as the main office and residence of the President of Austria. In front of the palace is a bronze statue honoring Prince Eugene of Savoy, a Frenchman who was overlooked for command within his home nation's military, so he went to Austria and offered his services to Leopold I, and would climb the ranks to become one of the Habsburgs' most successful military leaders, under the rule of 3 different emperors. This tribute to him was commissioned by Franz Joseph and unveiled in 1865. There are multiple experiences you can enjoy in the palace complex, from the Spanish riding school to tours of the imperial apartments. With a short amount of time and other stops to make that day, I chose to explore a bit of the Welt Museum, a massive archive of over 400,000 archaeological objects from various parts of the world. While I can learn about the Habsburg dynasty and the lands which were part of their empire, or see artifacts from far-off places in the world, there were 2 sections I ended up spending most of my time in, and that was the Imperial Armory and the Historic Musical Instrument Collection. The armory was filled with a vast collection of shields, weapons, and armor worn by knights and emperors over the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries. The collection is purposely displayed to resemble an art museum rather than a history museum, and it is vast as there are tons of pieces to be seen. You could easily spend a few hours looking at each of the different sets and reading about them. There were even some displays that featured the armor and covering worn by knights and their steeds for the sport of jousting. While weapons and warfare may not tickle everyone's fancy, those with more of a musical inclination will certainly want to see the musical instrument collection, as it too is quite vast and spans multiple centuries of time. Percussion, wind, and string instruments can be found in several rooms, and it's incredible to think how some of the instruments we see used today are not all that different than their predecessors from as far back as the 16th century. Some of these pieces seem to be in such a condition that they could probably be played and sound just as beautiful as they would back then. Some of the displayed harpsichords and pianos are themselves pieces of art, with intricate carvings and moldings, as well as very detailed paintings. Austria is well known for its famous composers, and there are tributes to several of them in this portion of the Welt Museum. One of the most famous composers has a special tribute in the garden outside, in the form of a large marble statue of Mozart, and the gardeners even use flowers to add a bit of a musical touch in front. It's always nice to get to hang out with famous composers like Mozart. However, Erica's just gotten up, so I think it's time to go pick her up, and we're gonna try to make up for something that was missed. As we had surmised that the 2 coasters we needed back at Prater operated in the daytime, we decided to head back one last time to test out this theory, and it proved to be correct as Hauschuban was running. While not quite as large as some of the other coasters which have a brake operator on the train itself, it certainly is one of the more scenic versions with its miniature towns and waterfalls on the small rugged mountains built around the course. A quick stroll over to the kids section, and we found their SBF Visa Junior Coaster race open as well, giving us park completion until the new Wiener Looping opens in 2025. Before we made our way back to the city center though, we decided to grab lunch at a rustic 19th century beer garden on the far end of the park, Schweizerhaus. Of course that meant having a beer, which was a Schneider Hefeweizen, and with it, some more bratwurst. Rather than drive back into the middle of the city, we decided to catch the subway, as the station was just down the street from the park. When we got into town, we made our way to St. Stephen's Cathedral, a Roman Catholic place of worship completed in the 16th century, which has a very ornate interior, as many other churches of similar age and size have. One of the things that stands out about this one is their tour of the catacombs. Photography isn't allowed during this tour, but you'll be guided into various chambers, including those which hold containers that are filled with the organs and entrails of various members of the Habsburgs, And there are a number of chambers filled with bones of thousands and thousands of victims of the bubonic plague which struck Vienna on multiple occasions. Certainly one of the more haunting experiences that you can have while exploring the cathedral. As you go for a stroll through the city, there's a nearby monument dedicated to those who were lost to the plague, which is incredibly detailed with its various carvings and sculptures. And while Vienna has seen its share of difficulties and darkness in the past, today there's a bright and beautiful city to explore. And some of that comes from classical architecture, as well as various gardens, including the rose garden we found on our stroll. To help us get to our next destination a bit quicker, we hopped onto one of the trolleys that rode around the Ringstrasse and into the nearby neighborhood to visit the home of the founder of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. In this building, he rented 2 apartments that were connected together, one which was used for his and his daughter Anna's practice, and the other served as the family's main residence. The 2 units contained photos that showcase how each of the rooms were utilized and what it looked like inside when it was fully furnished. A few of the rooms have small sections of the original paint or wallpaper showing, so that visitors could see what color or design would have been on the walls back then. And several of them contain cases with various artifacts, including copies of his books, some of his handwritten letters, and personal possessions. Unfortunately, he would have to leave his home, as he and his family fled to London when Austria had been taken over by Nazi Germany, and it was becoming apparent that they were going to start targeting the Jewish population. On the walls alongside of one of the museum staircases is information about what happened to other Jewish residents of the apartment, as many were sent to concentration camps, and the majority of them were among the millions who met their untimely demise. After exploring the museum, you can visit the cafe and gift shop where they have copies of Sigmund's books, and you can have yourself a beverage to enjoy a bit of a Freudian sip. You might try one of their pastries as well, but there was a particular cake I had read about that Vienna is well known for, and I was more than happy to seek it out. So we hopped back on the trolley toward the Ringstrasse and made our way to a couple of locations we hoped would serve that special treat. During our search, we met a gentleman who was selling tickets to various shows and attractions of the city, and he gave us a personal recommendation to visit Gerstner, a cafe that opened back in 1847, offering a variety of baked goods and multiple floors of seating. We went up to the 3rd floor, which had us surrounded by some of Vienna's legendary figures, including the famed composer Beethoven. And in their company, we had ourselves a slice of Vienna's cake, the Sachertorte, a chocolate sponge cake covered with apricot jam, and a chocolate glaze. As someone who enjoys an occasional slice of cake here and there, this was by far one of the most delightful treats I've had in my travels.
That's really good.
Those who are looking for something quicker than a full dining experience can grab a slice from the street level counter, and they also offer full cakes if you have more people in your party or wish to have seconds or thirds. As we continued into the evening, there was one more attraction in the plans, as it had longer operating hours than some of the others, and it was another experience tied to the sounds of the city, courtesy of the House of Music, an interactive attraction with 4 main exhibits to enjoy, each on its own floor, and going from one floor to the next could even be a musical experience in itself. The bottom level exhibit is the Vienna Philharmonic Museum, dedicated to the world-renowned musical group, with artifacts and a small theater which allows you to watch various clips of their performances over the years. Above that, the second exhibit is about the physics of sound, highlighting the science behind the way we hear things, especially different types of instruments, and you even find out what different tones sound like depending upon which species of animal you were, or chill out to a visual representation of sound creatures as they crawl on the ceiling above to the musical tones that play in the background. The third exhibit celebrates the famous composers of Austria that have helped to create some of the best known symphonies, and each section highlights an individual composer with a look back at their life, influences of their style, and a variety of items from their career, such as handwritten sheet music or personally played instruments. What might have been the most fascinating thing to learn was that Beethoven's hearing loss was more progressive, as he could hear earlier in his career, but his hearing loss became worse and worse over time. And one of the interactive displays would help you understand what his hearing level was like based upon the time that he created different compositions. The final level of the House of Music brings you to the stage, as you get to become the conductor to lead your own virtual symphony. The faster you move the baton, the faster the orchestra plays, and if you don't keep the correct pace, they'll warn you. But if you don't correct it soon enough, you'll get booed right off the stage. And like any good attraction, the House of Music has a gift shop featuring a variety of miniature toy instruments, as well as books about the various composers. As the night sky was taking over, the city became even more enchanting as lights began to showcase its buildings and monuments. But one feature down the street from the House of Music really used those lights to gain the attention of people nearby, and that was the fountain known as Hochstrahlbrunnen. Created under the rule of Franz Joseph in 1873, it celebrated the completion of the first spring water pipeline into the city from the Styrian Alps, bringing clean water to the people of Vienna. The various streams of water have meanings, as there are 365 tiny jets forming a circle on the outer edge of the pool, which represent each day of the year, and the 12 highest jets represent the months of the year. There is also 24 smaller jets which represent the number of hours in a day. This fountain sits in front of a rather large monument dedicated to the 17,000 soldiers of the Soviet Army who were killed during the Vienna offensive, where the Soviet Union took control of the city from the Nazis and would eventually lead to Austria regaining its independence. Before we ended our evening in the city center, we took one more ride around the Ringstrasse and then a short walk to a fairly highly rated restaurant called Mel's Craft Beers and Diner. Not to be confused with the famous San Francisco restaurant featured in the film American Graffiti, although there was certainly a visible American cinema influence on this place. It is known for having a wide selection of craft beers, which led to Erica going for a flight, and I tried the Franziskaner German Weissbier, which the menu said that many call it the best Weissbier in the world. I will confirm that it was incredible, certainly among my favorites. As for the food, most recommendations for this place were the hamburgers, which I wouldn't have expected for a restaurant in Europe. I also wouldn't have expected to see one on the menu with a name like Queers and Steers, but it actually sounded like a good option based upon what they had on it, so that's what I ordered. Unfortunately, Erica's Portobello mushroom burger left her with a bit to be desired, as it only had a few slivers of mushroom. Rather, it was more like a blue cheese sandwich. But I will say, the Queers and Steers burger was really good, especially with that fried egg and bourbon barbecue sauce. As we strolled back over toward the subway to return to Prater for the car, we happened to see the famous Anker clock off of Hoher Market Street. The mechanical clock features 12 historic figures that rotate throughout the day, and if you stop by midday, you can see all of them rotate through. A nice little piece of history to bring the day of exploring Vienna to an end. If there's anything to take away from visiting the Austrian capital, it's that there are some excellent ways to enjoy its musical heritage and to learn about its history and famous residents. And there's no shortage of delicious food to have along the way. And like several other cities I visited before, there are plenty of reasons to come back for more, as I would love to in the future. But our time in Austria was coming to a close, as next time we drive back to the west for one more chance to ride some Austrian coasters, including one that was retiring soon, before getting back to Germany to prepare for our flight home. Thank you for watching this video from Coasting with Culture. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and click on the subscribe button to see future videos here on YouTube, like these ones which you may enjoy as well. Additional content can be found at coastingwithculture.com, and you can also follow Coasting with Culture on various social media channels at CoastWCulture for announcements, previews, and updates. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care and safe travels.